Like the Real Housewives of Max Verstappen up in here.
Checo's checked out.
Joe Guanyu is off the track. That steak is cooked.
A lot, I gotta say, a lot is at stake for Steak F1.
Man, even the broadcast couldn't handle that stat.
My heart almost was screaming like, how can anybody be a Lewis Hamilton fan?
No.
Not on my 2024 bingo card.
Yeah, we're gonna have to create a new one now.
Hey guys, and welcome back to Lights Out Latest. My name is Marina, and I'm here with Jason, Steven, and Tristan. What a race.
Yeah.
What a Monza Italian weekend. But before that, more big Italian news. Kimi Antonelli, Italian driver, confirmed to be driving for Mercedes next year. What do you guys think?
Good for Mans. I mean, I think we all talked about it a few different times here. I think the worry is that he's just not going to be ready.
Yeah.
Especially with that FP1 performance. I think it was this week. Yeah. When he crashed in FP1. I mean, I don't put too much stake into that just because, pretty easy incident to make, especially if it's only like your very, not the first time, but one of your first times in a real F1 car. So, I mean, it's understandable. But yeah, I mean, I think it's just going to come down to how he does next year. I think he'll do all right. Especially considering, I mean, also he finished 12th yesterday, so not bad at all. So I think
I just heard he's getting a second FP run. In what is it? I don't know if it's the next race. Yeah,
September 13th.
Yeah,
something like that.
So not Azerbaijan, or yes, Azerbaijan?
Yeah, it should be Azerbaijan.
So you should be back, but because that's in 2 weeks' time.
He's getting another FP1 run. Obviously this one 10 minutes and he just crashes it.
Yeah,
it happens to the
but
best.
he's good enough that they placed him as home race, which is nice.
Yeah, he might not have ever driven the F1 car at Monza, but I could be wrong on that front.
No, I don't think he ever has driven F1 in Monza. But I also thought it was really interesting that Toto Wolff said he made up his mind on Kimi Antonelli literally 5 minutes after Lewis said he was leaving for Ferrari.
And his call him Max Verstappen didn't go through for the 3 millionth time.
Okay, but here's the thing, and I was thinking about this. Is him saying this basically saying that George Russell has been on the verge of losing his seat all year? Because if he was made up on Kimi Antonelli and he wanted Max, like legitimately wanted Max, and he's still saying he's going to try for Max in 26 season, so next year.
I mean,
is that him saying George is gone?
No, I wouldn't say that necessarily. I mean, I think
so.
If you're him, if you're Toto, I mean, you're always going to prefer Max Verstappen over George Russell. Hell, you're going to prefer Max Verstappen over anyone on the grid because he is the best after all. So, I mean, I think there's always the chance that if you can get Max Verstappen, you would take him over anybody. I think that's just the way it goes. Unless George Russell goes next to Max Verstappen out of nowhere.
I think that's a little too deep of a dig because I feel like not your take, Steven. I'm saying that like he wants to get rid of George. I don't think that's true.
I don't think he wants to get rid of George. I think he's willing to get rid of George.
Yeah, oh, sure. Toto's willing to find perfection. Like, I mean, the man is a perfectionist. I think him saying that within 5 minutes he knew it was Kimi is just because Kimi's in their system. Like, they're looking for young talent. They're looking to not rebuild that team, but like, I don't know, get up on a new like frontier almost. And I think George, with the reps that he has, but he's still a very young driver, and then Kimi with the potential to become a great driver, I think it was the most realistic choice. And we've been talking about it for months.
Yeah.
That it's realistically probably until Carlos signed with Williams, we thought Kimi or Carlos was going to go to Mercedes.
Yeah.
And Carlos signs Williams. Now we're like, all right, it's Kimi Antonelli that's going to get that.
Well, yeah, I don't know if you guys remember this. We talked about Kimi last season, the end of last season. He was announced that he would be moving from F4 straight to F2, and that this was a move by Toto Wolff, and that people should start looking at him because he's a great driver. He's been in the Mercedes program for, I want to say, almost a decade.
Wow.
He's been in there for a long time. They've followed him ever since karts, so he's been this talent, similarly to Max, that people were watching Max in karts being like, this guy's going to be the next talent. I think Kimi's the next one. So why wouldn't you want, we've been talking about Kimi as the next Max Verstappen. Why wouldn't you want Max Verstappen and the next Max Verstappen in the same team? Obviously, you're going to take that, in my opinion, over George Russell.
Of course.
It was a Sainz situation. Like, why would... Like, Carlos Sainz is great, but you won't pass him up over Lewis Hamilton. Same thing.
No.
You're not going to pass... Like, George Russell's great, but you're not going to pass him up over Max Verstappen.
Yeah. That's true. I think also there's a slight turn. And Marina's going to hate me saying this, but there's a slight turn, and I think the Formula One market right now, where I don't think Max is losing value, but we're seeing the car.
I know what you're going to say.
Is Max
It does matter quite a
depreciating?
Here's
bit.
the thing. Here's the only reason I would slightly disagree with any take of, not your take specifically, but any take of Max losing value. And that's because the chances are he's still going to win the championship. I think he's still very much in the fight for the drivers. And I also think that it's been in the media several times. I don't know if you guys have seen this. Jos Verstappen, not to say he's the most credible of sources, but he's a source, said that Max told not only him but the entire team that there were issues with the balance and the correlation between the wind tunnel and the car months ago. They told him when Red Bull was still winning all the races. They won 7 races at the beginning of the season. Like, he said there's an issue with the balance, and they didn't fix it. They didn't look at it because they're winning all the races. They're winning by 30 seconds in Bahrain, so there's no need to make any changes.
Yeah.
Now that we're seeing these issues come to life post Monaco-ish, that's when we're really seeing it. And even still, he's finishing consistently ahead of Perez. He's qualifying much better than Perez. He's making the difference when it needs to. So,
Oh, absolutely.
I don't know.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but I mean, I think we all know that I don't think Red Bull is going to win that constructors championship.
No.
Oh, you and I did talk off key, like off pod, and I said, well, all it's going to take is a couple of 6th and 7th place finishes and Lando to win a couple races for that gap to shrink. And we didn't see it this weekend, but Lando did finish, I think, 3 positions ahead of him on podium. And Max finished I think P5 or P.
So P3 is 15 points?
Yeah, because Oscar
and
finished,
Max was
right?
6th, which is I want to say it's 8 points. So the gap that he took out is the same gap if Max had gotten 2nd and Lando had won.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying is, let's say Max does finish a 5th place in one of these races and Lando does win. I mean, they're
That's a
down
big
to
chunk.
That's a huge chunk. That's all I'm saying
Yeah.
is, I believe in the fact that Max Verstappen is the most consistent driver in the field. It's factual, it's just true. But I worry about that Red Bull team. I really
Me
do.
too.
I have no clue what those freaking dorks are doing.
Yeah, let's put it this way. There's a reason we're all talking about Max Verstappen going to Mercedes for a good handful of months now.
Yeah.
Not just because of on-track performance, but because of off-track woes with the Christian Horner stuff, with him and Jos beefing, which isn't a new thing, but it's just an added pressure on Max. And there's a reason we're still talking about it now, and Toto is still making moves for it for 26, because Max he's not happy.
Yeah.
The only time I saw Max smile this entire weekend was when he was asked about Charles Leclerc's win in Monza. That Verstappen bond is still so strong. But other than that, he's not happy. He's not happy. He's not winning races.
No.
So
I still think there's a chance. It's almost definitely that Red Bull aren't going to get the constructors done. McLaren are within 18? No, even less, 9 points or something like that.
I think it's 10 points. Yeah, 9 or 10 points.
Yeah.
And then Ferrari are within
39.
40. Yeah.
And it's just
So
a shame.
it's so tight. And then now it's contingent on him winning the drivers, is that Lando doesn't win 6 races and Max doesn't finish 2nd every race.
Yes.
Neither of those things are going to happen.
Yeah.
Also, Max
I
himself,
think it's going to be really tight.
I mean, we see
Lando is not going
Abu
to
Dhabi.
win everything, but Max is not going to be on the podium.
Yeah, but also it's such a wild card of a season. For example, Ferrari won this past weekend.
Yeah.
I thought Ferrari had kind of not given up, but I thought they were
Focusing on
7th, 8th
25.
place team, and then all of a sudden Charles Leclerc wins in Monza. Sure, obviously fairy tale. We're in Italy.
Well,
blah, 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 blah.
I will say, I think
But-
if you're Ferrari in this position, I think this was almost a must-win situation to prove
Yeah.
it's still
They always
relevant.
go all
Probably.
out.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Focus
I
all their
think
effort.
Ferrari wanted to solidify that they are at the 3rd place team, if not even the 2nd place. And I was going to say that Jason's going to like this. Like you said, Ferrari's 39 points behind Red Bull, but they're only 30 points behind McLaren. All it takes is one move by Oscar or Lando to crash into each other when they don't score points, because that move, and we'll talk about it later on, that move on turn 4 on the first lap of the race, that was risky. That was very risky. That was very close. And all it takes is one time where Lando doesn't finish the race, or Oscar doesn't finish it, whether that be them crashing into each other, whether that be Max and Lando crashing again. All it takes is one time that they don't finish for Ferrari to close that gap. And Ferrari could still win this constructors, which is why I'm so loving what Will Buxton said yesterday. And I'll play it for you guys later. But let's talk about another team principal. James Vowles. I used to love James Vowles. I still do love James Vowles. But this weekend, he said Mick Schumacher was not special and would simply just be good in the car. He said Logan had reached his ultimate potential in Formula One. And then he joked that signing Carlos Sainz was like dating, where it started off with some messages and ended up with him in Carlos's hotel room. So
I feel like dude's ego is just through the roof right
I think
now.
it's the opposite. I think he just has no media training or no
That's
awareness.
kind of where I was like thinking too.
He didn't come from a business or PR background where you're constantly in front of people. He came from like engineering.
That's fair.
So he was always in an office next to people who needs to know exactly what's going on and the truth behind every single little detail. And he's carried that over into being a team boss, and he just lets those things out there.
Yeah.
Like he's been openly courting like Sainz all year.
yeah, absolutely.
With Logan sitting there like, oh my gosh, are you gonna fire me? And he's like, yeah, I'm looking at Sainz right now. And Logan's
Sorry,
like,
the
"What?
mathematical
And I gotta wait
equation
for
is
you?"
simple math. You're just not good enough, bud. I'm gonna have to plug you in.
That line is so
Logan
vicious.
like this, and it's been very unintentional. A lot of other like sports bosses love to like play it up, like Jose Mourinho in soccer, or they're like very charismatic coach that's like, oh yeah, we don't like this guy, we like this guy, they could come after me, right? James Vowles just does it inadvertently. He's like, yeah, you know, Mick just wasn't special, you know, that's our analysis.
He kind of reminds me of like Helmut Marko, but without knowing what he's doing. Because Helmut Marko says these things and knows exactly what he's doing. He's doing it.
Yeah, he knows he's playing the media. James is saying it because this is a genuine
what's genuinely coming through his mind. And he's, like you said, I would agree with that. I think that there's probably a little bit of a lack of media training there. He also came right back to the media after this exploded on social media saying, look, Mick's a great driver. Mick has made huge steps, and there's a reason he's in a program like Mercedes as their reserve driver. We just wanted to go with someone that was inside our driver academy, which to me makes sense, right? You want to go with Franco Colapinto. He's in your driver academy, but you also just said Mick wasn't special. So it's very clear that their PR team, although he's not PR trained, came to him and was like, look,
you gotta go.
You gotta take that back.
Because
the Schumacher name
what does Toto think about that? Toto's like,
I think Toto had a response. I don't have it in front of me, but I definitely think he said something about it.
Yeah, because we've all sat here and not said, but we know that Toto is like, he likes Mick. Like, he really does.
Toto manages Mick.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's on the professional level, but also like on a personal level, like they're close, you know?
Absolutely.
So you're second in command at basically your sister team says, yeah, nah. like, you know, like, he is a zero in my eyes. Like, that's it. Like, what are you feeling about that?
Yeah. I don't know. That's interesting. That's a good point about the sister teams. But let's talk about Franco Colapinto, because he was brought in Tuesday. He said he found out on Tuesday, which is when we all found out, because I was in my Com 370 class where there's no electronics, and looked down at my Apple Watch and was like, oh, there it goes. Anyways, what do you think he proved himself this weekend? Do you think the switch is worth it? Were you surprised?
I'm going to paint this picture kind of like a Liam Lawson deal, where we saw Liam and we saw a bright shining light that could potentially be greatness, but you got to give him more than just 2 or 3 races to prove that. A 12th place finish at Monza is incredible in your first. I mean, has this kid ever gotten reps in an F1 car before? No.
He's been in a couple FP1s, but never a race. I think the longest stretch he had ever driven in an F1 car before this race was 8 laps.
Damn, all
consecutively.
Right. I think all of us look at the performance. We're like, it's phenomenal. It's better than Logan's been able to do pretty much the whole year.
He finished 12th in a Williams.
Yeah,
his teammate was 9th.
Pretty good.
So it's not even the position. It's what you said about Alex. It was like he was 9th. He was 14 seconds off Alex. I don't think Logan's finished 14 seconds off Alex in a hot minute.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
And Perez can't even finish 14 seconds off Max.
Yeah, he was more than.
I mean, except this weekend. This weekend was weird.
Was he not like 10 seconds off Max this weekend?
Ooh,
still though.
Still, yeah.
So even still,
But I would like to say the kid. It's exciting to see. Maybe a slightly more scrappy Williams team for the second half of the year or for the last, whatever.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm gonna sit here. I'm gonna wait.
They're supposed to have balance updates coming soon to hopefully fix the balance of that car. So that's also coming. I think also another thing, I like that you mentioned Liam Lawson, because Liam Lawson was very openly Williams' first choice. He's who they wanted in the team. But and I said this if you haven't seen our Instagram or TikTok, it's on our Fun Fact Friday. Red Bull wanted to have Liam back whenever they wanted because they're still insecure about whether or not they should have kept Checo second half of the season. And if they at some point are like, enough is enough, and they do decide to switch their drivers, they wanted to be able to call Liam back whenever they wanted.
Yeah.
And so
Liam on speed dial right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
But I feel like we should nickname this the Checo effect.
I know.
I mean,
there's always a domino ready to fall over.
Yeah.
Because of Checo.
It's
still crazy to me that they kept him. And the fact that they're so insecure about it, it's like, oh, they probably realized they made a mistake. Probably not long after that they, re-signed him. And they're like, oh, shoot, now we gotta keep Liam Lawson.
Like, is he really gonna be here next year, Checo?
I don't think so.
His contract says so, but we know Red Bull has their ways.
Now the market is just weird because Liam is realistically, I think, the only option they have to, like, if they were to jostle some seats around, like in the whole Red Bull like family. I feel like Liam is like the only realistic option they could bring in as a fresh face, but then move people around is like, where would like Danny go? Where would Yuki go? Like, it's
I have differing opinion on that one actually. I think that Isaac Hadjaw is also a very good option for them. He's winning the F2 championship right now. He's Gabriel Bortoleto breathing down his neck from his race win in F2 this weekend. Is only 10 points away, but he's been phenomenal in F2. He's another face. The problem that I see with this is we talked about it a lot. For me, when they put Danny back in the car at the end of last year, they told Liam Lawson, you're going to be driving one of our cars in 25. And if they don't, I think they lose him. He's going to try and go somewhere else. He's going to try and fill that Audi seat. He's going to try. Like, why am I sticking around with you if you're never going to put me in the car?
Sure. Yeah, that's true. I mean,
you don't have forever to make that move.
Yeah, from our perspective, it makes sense, but from a personal perspective, and Liam Lawson, it's like, I'm going to take the best opportunity I have as quick as I possibly can. Because, I mean, at the end of the day, like anything else, F1, time is money. And time is success, too. So,
you
want to get in an F1 seat as quick as possible so you can get your success going. And if you're just kind of sitting there as like an unbeknownst reserve Red Bull driver, it's like, before you even get into F1, it's like, what are we doing here?
Yeah. Well, you even talked about the constructors, because this even goes all the way back to constructors. The gap between Red Bull and McLaren is like 9 or 10 points. Can you imagine if Checo was finishing consistently like Max the first part of the season? We wouldn't be talking about this right now.
Literally.
Because they would be at least 50, 60, 70 points up the road.
Yeah. I mean, that's the incredible part about it is it's literally a one-car fight against two at the top.
One versus two.
And Red Bull did it to themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I want to look at actually I have it here in the notes. I want to see the gap because I think it's like Verstappen has 303 points in the championship. Red Bull has 446.
Yeah.
That's wow.
And also that other like 100 some from Checo, that's not even from recent races. That's from like maybe the first couple of the season.
Yeah, he got a number of podiums at the start.
At the start, they were 1-2 a lot at the start. They were 1-2 in Jeddah, if I remember correctly, in Bahrain. At the very the start of the season, Red Bull looked like that force that like they came back just as strong as last year. We were even asking at the beginning, where's McLaren? Because they finished the first couple of races like behind Ferrari. I think sometimes they were even behind Mercedes.
Yeah.
And then they brought those upgrades and they made that jump. And Red Bull weren't able to make the jump. And Checo sucks.
And the other thing is too, of course, we talked about before, and Checo's crashing to add on top of that.
Yeah, crash damage is crazy. He has more crash damage than Logan Sargeant, who just got replaced.
Yeah. And we talked about before, it hurts Red Bull in more ways than one. Of course, it hurts them in the points, but of course, the destructors, they cost some money, and they can't do much with. I don't think they have any money left to send upgrades, do they?
They might have some, but they don't have the money that McLaren has because they haven't had almost any crash damage.
Yeah.
So it's tough.
That new shiny wind tunnel.
Yeah, for sure. Real quick before we move into the weekend, I wanted to mention, because I think it's really funny, both Jack Doohan and Kimi Antonelli have apparently requested the number 12. When I told my grandma this, the first thing she said was, because of Aaron Senna, which I hadn't even thought about originally. I don't know why they want the number 12, but I'm curious to see who's going to get it. I would assume since Jack Doohan was hired first, he put in his request first.
Yeah.
but maybe he didn't.
I could see this being like an NFL type deal where numbers are sacred, and I'm sure it is in F1 too, especially with like Ayrton Senna. But
yeah,
I wonder if this is going to turn into a situation where it's going to be like they ask each other for favors, to get that number. Like it's like, yeah, if you give me like 5-10 million, I'll give you the 12, no problem.
So where's Jack is at Audi Sauber.
Alpine.
Oh, Alpine. Right. Sorry,
F1,
I do remember that for a second.
We don't have any retired numbers, right? It's not a thing.
No.
Did they not retire Jules' number? Jules Bianchi? I think that number
Was
is
he
retired.
11?
What number was he?
I couldn't tell you off the top of my head.
We're gonna fact check this, ladies and gentlemen. We are fact checking it live.
Yep.
We are seeing if this is a fact. We're running it up through corporate. Corporate is giving us Steven, what do you got?
He's
Corporate?
17.
Yeah, retired. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, there you
Oh, I
go.
know
That might
that's
be one of the
retired.
old retired numbers.
Okay.
Because I know Senna won 27, which is currently on, was that Nico? Nico's 27.
Yeah. Good number.
He ran 12, and I know someone's had 12 after that. So I don't think his number was ever retired. I think it's just Jules. I can't think of anybody else's numbers is retired. But again, in the comments, fact checked us because we know his is retired, but I don't know about everybody else.
I know in NASCAR there's no retired numbers because the numbers are owned by the teams. So, for example, when Dale Earnhardt died, Richard Childress, his team owner, still owned the number, and then he gave it to his grandson. So I think NASCAR, if they wanted to, could retire it if they really, really wanted to. Maybe like when Richard Petty dies, maybe they'll retire the 43 or something like that. I don't know.
I mean, of course, it's a big deal, and I think it would be an F1 too. Like, with like the 48 going from Jimmy Johnson to Alex Bowman to 24.
It's always a big deal, and I'm sure you know this. Like when Austin Dillon took the 3, people were livid.
Yeah.
They were like, no, that's Dale Earnhardt's number. You can't drive that car.
Yeah. I wonder if this F1 fans have the same feeling, especially with that 12.
Yeah. Well, I think it's harder because I feel like the number is so much less important in Formula One.
Yeah.
It's tiny. It's a little thing right on the nose of the car. I mean, I think the one that's most important is Max because he's got one. It's the championships.
Yeah, because you can only run that number when you win. If he were to lose the championship this year, he'd go back to 33.
Yeah.
And the other thing that's interesting, because I know that this was an issue, the reason they've made this rules was an issue early on in the F1 was while Max has the number 1, nobody can have the number 33.
Right.
But in the past, I think there were times when the championship driver would take number 1 and someone else would go take their number. So when they didn't win the championship the next year, they had to switch numbers.
That's crazy.
I'm going to have to do a Throwback Thursday on this because now I'm interested.
Stay tuned.
Stay tuned.
The numbers, man.
All right. Let's get into the race weekend. A couple big-ish things in quali. First of all, Franco Colapinto, he had a good weekend, but that quali, he just put a tire in the gravel and wasn't able to improve. And
18th
also
isn't last though.
No, 13th
No.
is not last.
Nope.
no,
Not
but
bad.
also we gotta give Logan a little bit of slack. He genuinely wasn't last. He was generally like 18th this year because both Saubers are terrible. They're so bad.
Yeah.
I don't know how they're still running an F1 because they're pretty much just as fast as an F2 car.
Yeah.
I was going to say.
It's literally just hanging on by a thread, so Audi comes in and
Yeah.
they're okay.
I agree. I think that's part of the reason that they're so bad because there's no investment there. I think that they're not investing in making this car good because everyone's doing a complete 180 in 2026.
They're legitimately, it's a legitimate. I don't know. This is the first time you would have to tell me, but this is like a legit bridge team. Like how you have bridge quarterbacks in the NFL. So you get This is the same thing, but in F1 on a much larger scale.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
$1 million scale.
Yeah. I just
$130 million scale.
Yeah.
Like I don't know if you, Marina, or you, Tristan, or Jason would know if this has happened before. There's another bridge team where like they come in for maybe 1.5 years, 2, and knowing that they're gonna leave at the end of those 2 years.
I don't remember the last time there was the situation where we've known 2 years in advance that the team is going to change ownership.
Yeah.
Well, I don't think that's what I mean. I feel like that's never happened in terms of like, oh yeah, we only are planning to do this for a couple years and we're calling it a day. But behind closed doors, like yes, kind of deal.
Probably.
Because back in the 90s and the 80s, team ownership used to swap hands like hotcakes. Like it'd be like, the lower end teams at least. Like they would be like, have it for 2 years, we're out of money, another team comes in, blah blah blah.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Absolutely. I also thought it was really funny Yuki calling the car and like this car is ridiculous, like this is ridiculous or whatever, and the team was like, Yuki, let's keep it off the radio, like keep the radio clean or whatever. And I'm just thinking, do you remember what he was saying 3 years ago?
Oh my god.
You're getting mad at him for saying ridiculous? Like,
Yeah.
I thought that was so funny. I was like biting my. I was like, what?
It's like they're scared of Yuki. They don't
Yeah.
It didn't end up mattering anyway because Magnussen just slamming into turn 1.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, we have to talk about that because that's quite an interesting scenario, I guess, coming next week. But first, I want to talk about how Lando, some radio messages at the end of quali, Lando apologizing for a bad lap, and then his race engineer goes, well, your shit lap was good enough for pole, so.
That is such a... I know you said before, that is such a Max Verstappen thing to say.
The ego is so high right now.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, hey, I love it. I absolutely love it.
Well, Max said pretty much the same thing this year.
Yeah.
I mean, it happened earlier this year when he was like, that wasn't a good lap. It was kind of rough. And then they were like, well, it was good enough for pole. And he was like, oh, what happened to everybody else?
Yes, I remember that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I
I
mean,
do remember
it's
that.
awesome. As long as McLaren can figure out their papaya rules and everyone else can figure out their papaya rules, then we'll be okay. But yeah, I mean, Lando has every right to be happy as long as, again, nothing else screws it up. But,
Yeah. I want to actually mention that because you talked about papaya rules before I forget. I saw an interview with Zach Brown where he said papaya rules is basically like a code of conduct where it basically just says you're free to fight as long as you're respectful about it and you leave enough room.
that is such a bad idea. I'm sorry.
What?
So
Hey, there has been teams in the past that have fought with 2 number 1 drivers and have won. And
Yeah, but
that was
it's
as
not
recently as
sustainable.
2016.
Yeah, I was gonna say
Yeah.
Nico Rosberg.
It's not
and,
sustainable. It's
But
just
it
not.
works when your car's so far ahead
It
that you don't
works.
have to worry about other teams.
It
Yeah.
works because Nico Rosberg retired at the end of the season. This is not sustainable for 4 years,
No.
Yeah.
for 5 years, and neither of those guys are going away in the next 4 or 5 years. I would go as far as to say that Oscar Piastri will be here for at least 10.
Yeah.
hope
He's
so.
good. He's
That'd be
really
awesome.
good.
And the
And he's
landscape
young.
has changed.
Yeah.
These used to be
totally.
drivers that be fighting for 5th place, but now they're fighting for wins. And
Yeah.
when,
Yeah.
once you get that golden ticket in front of someone's eyes, complacency and nice feelings and honesty kind of go out the window a little bit.
Yeah.
Um,
I want to play something real quick. I told Steven about it earlier pre-pod. I want to play something for you guys. I want to hear what you guys think because this is exactly how I feel about McLaren at the moment.
Right.
Make sense to me that you allow your drivers to fight. It doesn't make any sense to me. Did Oscar pull off one of the moves of the season? 100%. My word, that was a gutsy, brilliantly executed move. But how are McLaren allowing their drivers to be in a situation where they're fighting each other? If you've got a 1-2 in the race, you're protecting that 1-2 because you're looking at the constructors' points that you want to bring in. And you then have to decide which of your drivers is more likely to win the World Championship with 9 races to go. They have the fastest car. Red Bull were on the back foot this weekend. We're not looking strong for a podium. And as it turned out, didn't even get a top 4, top 5 finish today. How are you not prioritizing the guy who's going to make the most out of this? How do you not even swap them on the last lap just to get a couple more points? Because you're not talking about giving away a victory at this point. It's a second place. Does it matter in the overall scheme of things? No, you're still bringing home the same number of points for McLaren. Why don't you? And this has nothing to do with my nationality, being British, the fact that I just want to see a championship fight. And I don't understand what McLaren are doing. I genuinely don't. And I haven't now for months because none of it makes sense. You have to be sensible. You have to be smart. And they're not being smart. And I don't get it. Like, it baffles me because they're going to throw it away. And you don't get these chances every year. You don't know when your next opportunity is going to come around. And they're going to throw it away. And they'll deserve to at the moment.
So I don't know. I thought that was interesting.
No,
This
I
is
thought
my
really
thoughts
good
exactly.
point. I didn't think about
the-
it in the grand scheme of things, but Oscar and Lando should have swapped. If it was possible, they probably should have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like they're
Well,
gonna,
this-
if they're talking, because no matter what, you get the same constructor points, but
Yeah.
it's about the driver. If you're trying to win both championships, that would have helped massively.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
That's
almost
interesting.
It's almost like they try to right their wrongs from the what was it?
Hungary.
But
Yeah,
there was
but
no wrongs. They want to swap the drivers. Like if it was the first half of the year, let them fight. But we're in the second half of the year. The only reason why they're doing this is to not hurt Oscar Piastri's feelings.
Yeah,
no, for sure.
They
That's what I'm saying.
said, "Oh, you're both equally as talented," which they are. You can both race each other hard, which they do. But now Norris is ahead on points. He just won more first.
Yeah.
And, mathematically, there's still a chance for Oscar. And Oscar is never, ever going to say, no, I don't want to fight.
Yeah.
So it's almost like Zach is like, do I want my two drivers mad at me and mad at each other, but I win a championship? Or do I not win the championship, but then I have my everybody mad at each other? Like, it's such a weird situation. They're just doing it to like I said, like protect Oscar Piastri's
They're trying to do too much at this point, though. It's like, I know we've talked about before with Ferrari, with Carlos Sainz and Charles Leclerc, but
they've inverted before.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just again, we said earlier, it's just not sustainable. It's just not.
Yeah.
At some point, these drivers, and rightfully so, it's like having two great quarterbacks on your team. You can't. You can't do that. It's just not going to work.
Absolutely. Yep. Who's to say the next year Ferrari doesn't have this huge package and they're the favorite?
Yeah.
I don't know if I played till this part of the video. I could honestly can't remember. I've heard him say, Will Buxton say the same thing over and over again. Again, this is the same person who said that they're bringing a spoon. It's not even a knife to a gunfight. It's a spoon about Haas earlier in the year.
Yeah. Yep.
But I think he makes a good point. Is like, if they don't win this championship, it's not because they didn't have the fastest car and they didn't have a chance to do it. It's because they just didn't play smart about it.
Yeah.
This is a sport.
It is.
This is a sport. Feelings are going to get hurt. In my opinion, they should have made that clear over the summer break. This is Lando's championship fight.
Yeah.
We're going to try and win the constructors, but the drivers is really important as well. And we're going to try and get it for him. And if that means you have to invert a P2 and a P3, so be it. You're still on the podium.
Yeah.
It's not like they're inverting third or fourth or the win. I personally still don't think that back in Hungary that Lando should have won that race. I think Oscar rightfully won that race, and I don't think they should have inverted.
Well, I honestly think it could have been literally a case of them being like, I know you said Jason not wrong. It's technically not, but it feels like to me that they were like, oh, okay, yeah, Piastri got got P2 there, or actually got in the lead, I think, right? Or am I crazy? That's Lando.
Yesterday?
Yeah, when he passed Lando, what position?
Yeah, he took the lead.
He took the lead, yeah.
So McLaren was probably sitting there like, okay, yes, we got our opportunity. Piastri got past Lando, albeit I absolutely hated that move, but we can get into that later.
Yeah.
But yeah, so they're probably sitting there like, okay, yeah, Piastri got the lead. Well, they're probably thinking, okay, yeah, let's get our strategy right. Let's go out there. Let's try and get Piastri this win. And of course, they got in their own way and I think they're trying to do too much. I mean, at the end of the day, too, this is the thing I'll say as well. They're trying to do something unprecedented, it feels like, in Formula One. And that's trying to please two top drivers. You just can't do that. It just doesn't work that way.
Absolutely. At the end of the day, if you don't, if God help us, something happens and Ferrari wins the constructors, for example, and they didn't prioritize Lando, so Max wins the drivers, both their drivers are going to be mad at them.
Yeah.
Because Oscar's going to sit here saying, well, if we had the chance to win the drivers, even if it's not me, if it's within the family, I feel like he would be upset that they didn't win the drivers. He'd also be upset they didn't win the constructors because they prioritized the constructors and they didn't win it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Let's talk about the incident because the overtake. Lando got a great start for the first time in forever. They both started well, and I was, as the commentator said, I was about to praise them for such an amazing start. They did a great start. They held off the 1-2. Then Oscar's like, actually, I'll take that spot. Thank you very much.
I can't with that move. I get it. I really do. And especially if it is the papaya rules and you're supposed to fight. But at the same time, it's like there are ways to pass and then there are ways to pass. Like, you could have
But he didn't even push him off track. It was all within bounds. Like,
it was.
If you want a sketchy pass, think of like Leclerc and Hamilton. Leclerc almost forced him off track. Or look at that was 2019. Leclerc and Max in Austria 2019. Like, those are really dirty passes that were never penalized. Like, if they're anywhere, there would be definitely a penalty. I don't think it was close. It was just a big dive.
Yeah, there was no doubt that this was a
big move.
I just think that it looked like they had talked about the start so much. it did look like it was very well planned. It looked like they did what they were supposed to do. They covered each other off.
Yeah.
It looked like they were working as a team. And then by the looks of Lando's face when he was asked about the overtake, he had no idea it was happening. It was not to plan. And I think that's what made it risky because obviously you can't predict what's going to happen in a race. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying that Oscar didn't need to pull off that overtake. He caught Lando by surprise, and had it been another driver, that move could have blended in, and it could have been a collision.
Oh, absolutely.
So I think it was risky. I think it was a risky move.
I think if you're Piastri, I just think he did get a little impatient there. I mean, Monza has some good straights, and all he had to do was wait probably another corner, and he had DRS on him.
I disagree. I don't think that Oscar would have gotten past Lando if he hadn't made that move.
No,
I think they would have stayed whichever order they came out of that corner. They would have stayed for a good chunk of the race. I think.
I also think there's connotation with turn 4 at Monza. It's just if I'm getting the corner right, isn't turn 4 the one where it's kind of the hairpin, like the chicane in between?
The left, right?
Yeah.
Where, I mean, in the past, didn't Sebastian Vettel have trouble there? Like
2018.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, 2018. Like,
and he was still in the championship fight. That was really bad.
Yeah.
Isn't turn 4 where Max's tire ended up on Lewis's head?
No,
that's
that
turn
was turn
1
2.
and 2,
wasn't
Yeah.
it?
Yeah, because turn 4 also was where the Hamilton and Leclerc incident happened.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
I think there's connotation between turn 4. We look at that turn and we're just like, don't make a sketchy move here. Come on. Like,
Because there's the big run.
Fool me once,
from that
fool
curve.
me twice. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I think it also had it wasn't just the overtake. It had a big effect on the race because I think it made and Steven, feel free to disagree with me here. I think it made Lando drive more aggressively.
Oh, sure.
And I think he was on edge. I think he was mad. I think he was really mad. He was fuming in the car. He made so many mistakes.
Yeah.
And this is one of the arguments of I guess against what Tristan kind of said. Not that Max is losing value, but Max 6th or 7th or not, he drove a seamless race. He didn't make any mistakes.
Yeah.
So, because if he had, he would have finished 8th.
Yeah. I mean, I think he would still rather have a dirty race and finish P3 than finish.
Oh, absolutely. I'm not saying saying I'd rather be in Max's situation, but I do think that Lando was capable of winning this race or even second.
Absolutely.
And he threw it away.
yes.
And McLaren threw it away.
Yeah. Well, I guess
this
this is just not to cut you off there. This
Go for it.
is just a classic situation of McLaren not being able to handle the race.
They're learning how to win. And right now they're not playing smart. Like Will Buxton said, they're not being smart about it.
Yep.
So
They're simply they really just got to go back to the basics right now. Like
yeah.
pull out the blueprint for an F1 team. Say, okay, I got one driver and I got my second driver. I'm gonna let them race, but whoever's gonna give my team the best chance when you would probably say both championships, I guess at this.
Yeah,
point.
especially this late in the year. Start of the year, like I said, let them fight, but now they really gotta figure it out.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I want to talk about strategy because it's such an interesting thing. I think at first we all thought, and I have proof of the group chat with Jason saying, "What the heck is Ferrari doing? Like this is terrible strategy. Like here we go again." Right? They did a masterclass in strategy. They did a great job. They pretty much did what Russell did,
I was gonna say,
and got disqualified.
except for their car was the right weight.
Was there
Like everybody went for that 2-stop, except for Ferrari
Well,
and Albon.
Albon did it. I think there might have been 1 or 2 other drivers down the field that did it as well. I think Albon
But none
did
of
it
the
really
top
well.
teams.
But none of the
except
top
Ferrari.
teams. They were the
What?
only top 4 team to do that.
Why do we think that is? Like,
I thought, okay, this is interesting. One of the interviews, Leclerc was quoted saying, "I think we did a great job at baiting McLaren into a strategy mistake." That tells me the optimum strategy going into the day, plan A for every single one of those drivers, was a 1-stop.
Oh, really?
All of them. I think they were all supposed to be on a 1-stop. They pitted, the first drivers pitted and realized they weren't going to make it to the end. Or they realized they had pitted too early, like Lando going in to undercut Leclerc, which didn't end up mattering because Leclerc only pitted the one time. So I think they were all originally on a 1-stop.
Yeah, I agree with you, but I feel like that's fundamentally strategist-wise. Like, you can't miss that, if that makes sense. Like, And like Ferrari on their one-stop plans, like, oh, we couldn't have possibly have thought of that or something like that. Or like, yeah, sure, you said they all are on a one-stop plan. Why would you fumble that?
Because
like, if strategy knew they could make it to the end on a one-stop plan, then just entertain me. Like, how does the two-stop plan make any sense then? Like, why?
Because I think the crossover between the one-stop and the two-stop weren't that far. We saw it with Oscar. Oscar finished 2-3 seconds behind Leclerc, who did a one-stop and stopped, and the pit stop time is 26 seconds.
Yeah.
Well,
so that crossover point with the tires, it's not that far. Here's the other big point that me and Steven were watching Matt and Tommy, P1 podcast. They talked about, I don't know if you heard this because you had just gone upstairs. Mm. They were talking about how the tires are a lot more reliable now than they were in the past. As in the past, you take them too far, they explode.
Yeah.
Now they don't. You're going to slow down. You're going to have a lot of graining, but they very rarely explode, which I think is why they're able to pull off that one stop compared to the two stops.
Well, so here's my question too. So what tires was it just hard medium or like hard?
Who?
Hard actually, Ferrari. Like they just go
medium hard. You have to do 2 compounds. So they started on mediums and then they went to hards and they made it to the end of the race on hards.
Yeah, right there. And, I mean, you just look at it, it was what, a 53 lap race, right?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, so that's just simple math right there. I mean, you go,
I think they went almost 20 laps.
Yeah, 20
on
laps
the mediums and then 33 laps on the hards.
33 laps on the hards is like, I mean, it's a lot, but I feel like it's not like.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Jason, but Monza's always been a one-stop race, has it not?
I honestly, I don't remember. I know they resurfaced some parts of the track. They might have resurfaced the whole track, so that made a big difference.
Yeah,
well,
that might have changed
too. Then, yeah.
Of
course, if you're gonna resurface the track, that's just gonna give you more.
Yeah, and it also rained, right? It rained late Saturday.
I don't know if it rained Saturday or if it was going to rain Sunday after the race. I think there was like a 40% chance for the race. It ended up being like after the race.
Because that will wash off some of the rubber from the track and definitely made it more degradation.
Yeah. I don't know. I think it's interesting. I also find it really funny that Red Bull are having all these tire issues as well when they always used to be the team that had the best egg. Not to mention Ferrari was the worst egg team. Clearly the upgrades they brought are working. They brought upgrades this weekend. They brought upgrades a little earlier in the year. They're clearly working.
Yeah.
So
well, of course, the only question is, sure, it worked for this race, but is it going to work for the others? You know what I mean?
Yeah, true.
That's going to be the question.
That's the question.
And that's why McLaren has been so good this year, because they've had a car that's been able to perform very well at every track, and all their upgrades are working at every track, it seems.
Yeah,
but,
absolutely.
We're just going to have to wait and see, because like you said, it worked this race, but it's just going to be a test. We have a street course coming up Baku in 2 weeks, so I think that's going to be a big test.
Yeah.
So true. We're just going to have to wait and see.
I think so. I think it's going to be I think Baku's going to be one of the more interesting ones of the remainder of the season. Because I think it's so different. It's a street track, but then you have those like really wide straights.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. It's really interesting. I think it'll be a fun one. One in which Kevin Magnussen will not be participating because he has officially gotten his race banned that we've been waiting for what, 3 months, 4 months.
He fulfilled his duties as a Haas driver.
Yeah, he's been banned for Baku after his collision with Pierre Gasly. Penalty for causing a collision, 2 points on his license. That makes 12 for the 12-month period, and he is gone. Do you think it will be Ollie Behrman, or is there a chance it's somebody else that will replace him for Baku?
It's got to be Ollie, right?
Yeah, almost definitely Ollie.
Yeah.
I mean,
Mick Schumacher.
Yeah.
No.
That'd be funny. No, that'd be really funny.
You are a Haas driver.
I think because they confirmed him, it's like confirmed him for next year. It's pretty much gonna be him, unless there's something that they don't want to like pull him out of F2, in which case they could take like Felipe Drugovich or something. But it's not like he's fighting for an F2 championship right now. So
yeah, true.
What else? Red Bull also a little note, not a huge interesting point, but I was listening to Max's radio the whole race. He had his engine turned down the whole race. They're still having engine problems. They're still having power unit problems. It's just been a season to forget for Red Bull right now.
And yet there's
guys leading the championship points. It's been a season to forget.
We were just talking about what Lando was saying, and here we are with Red Bulls.
Look at the season they had last year. Compare the season they had last year to the season they
Oh
had
my
this year.
God, yeah, sure. But how many freaking records did he break last year? Like,
A lot.
God forbid you can't do that
I
again.
don't think you can ever do that. I don't think you can be like, oh, well, they were perfect last year.
I literally think we encountered a unicorn season. I don't think we're ever going to see anything like it again. But again, if that's where the standard's set, then they're doing terribly. They might as well be a Sauber car at this point.
Well, if Lando wins the championship, he would have clawed back from the biggest championship gap ever.
Oh wow.
This feels a lot
like that's a goofy thing because the points have only gotten more and more over the years.
Yeah,
like I mean,
is true. That's a good point.
They're winning by a couple hundred more points than anybody did in the 90s or anything like that. So
yeah,
but it's fair. Times change, and if the rules have changed, then that's a fact, and that's what we got to live with. But still,
it's a lot like Braun GP. Like they started out the year really good, won everything way ahead of everybody. And then past like the halfway mark, literally teams like McLaren, and surprisingly Red Bull came back, and Braun GP the second half of the season won nothing. They're like fighting for like 7th and 8th. But Jenson Button just built up such a big gap from the start of the year that didn't matter. Max Verstappen, same position where, I'm sure Jenson, I want to hear Jenson's words on this, which he'll be on F1 TV, Sky Sports eventually. Because he went through the same thing where he had to just make it to the end of the year. He had his championship lead. He could do nothing about it. He couldn't win anything else.
Yeah. It's a similar situation. It really is.
So Max is kind of here now, seeing that championship lead just fall away race after race. Even though he has such a big lead, he's like, I don't know how much longer I could do this in 7th place.
Yeah.
Like
he said himself that Red Bull's not gonna win any more races. Things stay the same.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that's what Max told via play. The other thing I think is interesting is we talked about the last time there was these like big rivals that were competing against each other. Same team, right? With Lewis and Nico. What's funny is Nico being on Sky Sports and asking Zach Brown, surely you're gonna let Lando through today, right? I'm sure he didn't feel the same when he was in the car.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sure.
But also, he wasn't in that position. He was legitimately fighting against his teammate for thing. That's not the only thing Nico said, though. He also claimed that he had received an email from Alpine to be an investor in the team, which I thought was really funny.
You mean the team that's selling themselves?
Not necessarily selling. I think they just need money, and so they're just selling chunks.
And did you hear about the factory issues?
Yes.
Yes, I did.
Apparently, Renault doesn't want to produce engines in 2026, so they're going to shut down the engine factory. And all the engine factory staff is like, "What? Our jobs?" And they're all like,
"Sorry,
protesting.
guys, it's all for the race team."
There's protests at the Grand Prix of banners of Alpine and employees, like, "Hey, Renault," and like Renault engine champions. It listed every year, like the 70s, 2005, 2006. 2011, 12, 13, all the years Renault engines won, and they're like, come on.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because they've had Renault engines for a while, and it was the Renault team, and now Alpine, and now they're probably going to have an outside engine supplier, whether that be Mercedes or Ferrari or whatever. They're probably going to have to supply out. Yeah.
I miss that yellow car on the grid. I like the Renault.
I really liked that yellow car. Yeah,
that was sick.
We have too many blue cars on the grid.
The 2017 Renault was one of my favorite, but the 2018 one, where like from the side it was black, but from the front it was yellow. That was really cool.
Wasn't that the year that their tractor trailer rode off the highway or something like that? It got
what?
An accident. Do you remember that?
No, I don't.
I vaguely remember what you're talking about.
Look
I
it
think
up.
either A, there was a fire on the trailer on its while I was driving on the highway, or B, it got into an accident and flipped on the highway.
See, I have a vague recollection of what you're talking about.
Yeah, I remember it was. I'm pretty sure it was a Renault.
5 years
truck.
ago. This photo?
Let me see.
That?
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. 5 years ago, like 2019.
Yep. See, I got stupid knowledge. I remember that for some reason.
Oh my gosh, yeah, it's just straight off the highway.
That's crazy. Well, I think we've covered pretty much everything except for the most important man of the day, Charles Leclerc. What a race! What a drive! What a celebration!
Oh yeah, the Tifosi were very happy.
Oh yeah. I mean, did
Very,
you all see the
very happy.
pictures where it was like when Donald Trump won, when Barack
Yes.
Obama won, and when Charles?
Obama. I keep seeing this TikTok where it's like Obama's crowd, Taylor Swift's crowd, Charles Leclerc wins in Monza, and it's like 100,000 people lined up to.
I have yet to hear the Italian commentary on the win. I really want to try.
I really wanted to. I was looking for it yesterday. I couldn't find it.
And that's the other thing too. I'm sure y'all catched it when Charles was speaking fluent Italian at the end of the race.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Like,
well,
damn.
he speaks French, Italian, English,
He
a little bit
speaks all
Spanish,
the
probably.
romantic languages. Apparently.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, absolutely.
It reminds me of like Seb, because Seb used to be he could speak German, English, Italian.
Total
I think
Wolf
a tiny
speaks
bit
a lot
of
too.
Spanish. Yeah.
Yeah, Gunther speaks a lot too.
Yeah. Well, they got to. It's funny.
Yeah.
It's one of the cool things about that sport, the sport as a whole, is you actually have to know a lot of languages because you're dealing with French people, you're dealing with Italian people, you're dealing with Germans.
Yeah, absolutely. It helps to know other languages too, even for other drivers on the grid, like to communicate in their language.
Absolutely, yeah.
Right, and I'm sure like Franco Colapinto and Fernando Alonso will speak in Spanish.
Yeah.
I always wondered too if like some teams and some drivers use it as almost like what's the word? Protection, if that makes sense. Like they use it as like a way to communicate and other people don't know what they're saying.
Oh,
for sure.
Oh, like on the grid, like on the Ferrari team, like speaking Italian so nobody can understand what they're saying. Well, I guess not in Italy, but everywhere else.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure they do. I do that as a bilingual person. I'll speak in Portuguese when I don't want other people to know what I'm saying, when they don't know, when I understand. Or if I'm in Brazil, I'll speak in English.
There you go.
Not to be like sneaky or anything. Sometimes you just want to have a private conversation in a
have
public
that
place.
advantage, absolutely.
Yeah.
So
life is unfair. Take as many shortcuts as you can.
I don't know. There's just something so beautiful about a Ferrari driver winning in Monza. Not to mention, the last Ferrari driver to win in Monza was Charles Leclerc in 2019. And also something so magical about, okay, the car isn't where you want it to be, but you won the two most important races to you and you won your home race and you want Ferrari's home race.
And they're so different from each other. Like Monaco,
completely opposite.
Total downforce, total qualifying, and really tight street circuit. And then Monza is high speed. Qualifying isn't that big of a deal.
Yeah.
Like, incredible work by Ferrari and Leclerc.
No, the thing I'll say is, though, I don't want to be a Debbie Downer here, but if for Ferrari, if this was all the wins they got, do you think they would be satisfied?
3 wins?
I don't know if satisfied is the word I'd use. I think they would be like they'd be okay with it. I think most importantly, it's not about the internal team, it's about the public.
Yeah.
The biggest Ferrari fans are the Italians, and I think the Italians are going to be okay. They're not going to absolutely destroy Ferrari in the media because of this, because they won in Monza. That's the most important race for them to win the year. And I know Charles Leclerc talked about it in the press conference. He's like, the reason this race is so special is not necessarily because you have 300,000 Italian tifosi in the grandstands and they want you to win. Yeah. It's because there's pretty much every team member has a friend or a family member that's in that crowd wanting them to win. Yeah. And that's what puts the added pressure on. Yeah. And they did it. Yep. You know? Yeah. So
I think the ruling is if you're going to be content with any victories this year, you won the 2 that matter the most to your fans, which is get the golden boy to win the race in Monaco and get the team win in Monza. Yeah. You know? So
the only thing I'll say is too, and I maybe this is different from my parents' perspective, but I know you mentioned it, the Tommy and Paul podcast. I almost wonder if this race is gonna be, I don't want to say overshadowed, but like it's gonna be like another kind of like an Oscar Piastri situation where it's like, yeah, Charles won, but it's not like, I want to say he didn't earn it because he did earn it, but it was another McLaren fumble at the end of the day. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Sadly.
I
mean, actually not sadly for the team in red. I'm only wearing this because I like James Vowles. He's
your
crazy.
Your point is to say that, okay, great, Ferrari got a win, but it's gonna be overshadowed by the fact that McLaren didn't get the win.
Yeah,
like they was given to them.
Yeah, like I guess what the headline would be. I mean, I think Charles. I think Charles.
I disagree. Not in this situation.
Yeah.
Everybody went for the 2-stop, and Ferrari made a deliberate move to the 1-stop.
Yeah.
A fumble would have been like if they would have lost in Hungary because the 2 drivers like crashed into each other.
Yeah.
Or like in Australia when Sainz won because the brake duct wasn't right. The only reason he won is because Max had the brake issue.
Yeah. And
you gotta be good enough to be in second when that happens.
Yeah.
But
Absolutely.
still, I disagree. I think they are in this one.
Yeah.
I also think that it's different because it's in Monza. Because it's a Ferrari win in Monza, there's absolutely not one thing that I can think of that can overshadow a Ferrari win in Monza.
Right.
Like, these are the papers, right? I know that's really hard to see. But like every single, you can't see because the light, but like every single paper in Italy, that's the homepage, right?
Yeah.
That's the front page.
Yeah.
So I don't think that can ever be overshadowed by anyone.
Very true.
The only thing missing for Ferrari was to have Carlos Sainz on the podium.
Yeah.
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 That's it.
Where did he finish?
4th.
Oh, so you finished.
Just
behind
got,
Piastri then?
because, what, say that again?
You finished behind Piastri. Is that
No,
right?
He
Lando.
finished behind Lando.
Oh,
It was-
okay, yeah. Piastri got second. That's
Yeah. So, but Lando did get fastest lap, which also helped him.
Yeah. Oh, speaking of which, I wanted to bring this up. How Lance went in like 2 laps before the end of the race to try and get the fastest lap, and
I
he
didn't see
finished.
that.
Yeah, I heard that today actually. He tried to go in. I don't know if it was 2 or a lap left, but he tried to go in. He went on like I assume softs, and he still finished 8/10 behind Lando for fastest lap.
That's crazy.
Jeez.
That blew my mind. It's like
That's even more of a goes to show how the 2-stop was the safe strategy. Because if he had enough to on the last lap put out a lap that was 8/10 faster than an Aston Martin on brand new tires, the Astons aren't fast. But any car on brand new tires should be faster than the one that's been on these tires for 20 laps.
right.
Yeah.
Right.
That's how much he had left in the tank
Yeah.
on those tires.
Sure.
So, speaking of which, quote of the day.
Ooh.
Lance Stroll was driving like it was his first go-kart race.
Oscar Piastri. Yeah.
That was my favorite moment of the weekend.
Yeah, that's
Because Oscar didn't just say it once, he said it twice.
and he smiled afterwards.
Yeah.
He like chuckled.
It is
He's like,
deliberate.
oh, that was a good one.
Oh yeah.
I think there's probably just a little bit of Oscar Piastri that thinks, well, if I had gotten past Carlos Sainz just a little bit faster, if Lance Stroll hadn't literally taken a second out of my lap time, being an idiot and clearly not understanding what blue flags means, then I could have won that race.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's why he said it more than once, because he's like, man,
Yeah.
that guy,
Well-
like, he took away my
hey,
race
I
win.
mean, you know
Yep.
what though? At least he was in good spirits about it. Like you could have been super mad about it. You know?
Yeah.
What I mean?
Yeah.
You could have been like, yeah. I mean,
Well,
just ruined my race. You know?
the press conference was a snooze fest before Charles Leclerc got there, because never would you have said on the first race of the year that the McLarens would be mad, would be angry, would be upset, annoyed at a 2-3 finish.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yep.
Ever.
Sign
Both
of the
of them
times,
were.
man.
I remember the cool down room, and they both looked pretty upset.
Yeah.
Yeah. And also
Again.
finishing ahead of a Red Bull.
Yep.
That's something that nobody's really talking about because Red Bull hasn't seemed fast, but something that at the beginning of the year, we would have been like, oh my God, they finished ahead of a Red Bull.
Yeah.
Like, we don't have the pace to beat a Red Bull.
Yeah.
And now he overtook a Red Bull, and Max was on the radio before that saying, do you want me to fight him or just let him through?
Yeah.
Max
Crazy.
Verstappen asked his team if he should fight Lando Norris or let him through. That's the point we've gotten to at the season. That's
It's
why I'm
like
saying
an
it's
alternate universe right
yeah.
now. It's like,
So,
man. That's
anyways, any final thoughts
on to Baku.
Yeah, on the back.
on to Baku? Well, thank you guys so much for watching. We hope you enjoyed. We'll be back every Monday at 11:30 Eastern Time. In the meantime, make sure to check out our social medias, Instagram and TikTok at Lights Out Latest. Bye, guys.